History tells us this stuff just happens. Wrong place, wrong time, bad luck, an accident, a surprise, a mistake. But here's the thing. What if the warnings were already there? What if somebody knew and let it ride? And accident was just the clean version of the story. Because this keeps happening. Every time, somebody wins, and regular people pay for it. Not everything was a mistake. Tonight, we break down 25 disasters history calls accidents, and why some of them were never accidents at all. If real history matters to you, subscribe to History Fact Story and drop a comment. It helps the channel grow. 25. Pearl Harbor Attack. December 7th, 1941. U.S. radar picked up incoming aircraft. The alert was ignored. Command assumed it was nothing. Yet intelligence warnings had already come in. Diplomatic cables, naval reports, clear signals, and then the attack began. Over 2,000 Americans were killed. The nation was shocked, and war approval came instantly. No debate, no delay. America entered World War II. Later, questions surfaced. Why weren't defenses raised? Why were alerts dismissed? And who benefited from the shock? Industry surged, power shifted. The attack was real, but the surprise may not have been. 24. The Titanic sinking. It was called unsinkable, and it was moving fast, too fast. Multiple iceberg warnings were received. Most were brushed aside. Speed was never reduced. Schedules mattered. Then came the impact. Small tear, massive consequence. Not enough lifeboats. Evacuation favored status. Over 1,500 people died. Later, questions followed. About money, about ignored warnings, and about calculated risk. The disaster was real, but the decisions before it. 23. The Gulf of Tonkin Incident. August 1964, American ships reported an attack. Enemy boats, torpedoes, gunfire. At least, that's what the report said. Within hours, the story reached Washington. The attack was called unprovoked, and Congress responded fast. War powers were approved. America entered Vietnam. A full-scale war followed. Millions would die. Years later, the story changed. One of the attacks never happened. The second was based on faulty signals. Doubts existed before the war vote. But the decision stood. The truth came too late. The war was real. The attack was not. 22. Challenger Space Shuttle Disaster. January 28, 1986. It was unusually cold. NASA engineers raised concerns. The rubber O-rings could fail in low temperatures. They warned against launching. The concerns were overruled. The launch was scheduled for national television. Delays were politically embarrassing, so the countdown continued. For 73 seconds, everything looked normal. Then the shuttle disintegrated. 7 astronauts were killed. The cause was exactly what engineers warned about. The failure was predicted and knowingly accepted. The disaster was real, but the risk was never a secret. 21. Chernobyl nuclear explosion. April 26, 1986. The test was scheduled late. A safety experiment. But the reactor was already unstable. Power levels dropped dangerously low. Stopping would have meant failure. So protections were shut off. The reactor became unpredictable. Energy surged out of control. Then it exploded. No one told them it was radioactive. The radiation was lethal. The city was evacuated too late. Later, investigators reconstructed the test. The risks were already documented. The failure scenario was known. The disaster was real, but the experiment was designed to risk failure. Before we begin, like the video, subscribe, and comment. It helps grow the channel. 20. The Lusitania sinking. May 1915. A civilian passenger ship, but not everything on board was civilian. The ship was carrying military supplies. Germany had warned the ship was a target. The warning was public. The voyage continued anyway. One torpedo hit. Then came a second blast. The ship sank in minutes. Nearly 1,200 people died. The world was furious. The sinking became a rallying cry. Later, the cargo was confirmed. The ship was not just carrying passengers. The outrage worked. Public opinion shifted. The sinking was real. The message it sent was the point. 19. The sinking of the U.S. Maine. February 1898. The ship was not in combat. No battle, no warning. Then it exploded. Over 200 sailors were killed. The USS Maine went down. Within hours, the blame was set. Spain was accused. Public outrage exploded, and war followed almost immediately. The sinking became the justification, but evidence was thin. No clear proof of an external attack. Subsequent reports disagreed. One conclusion pointed inward. An internal explosion was likely. But the war had already been fought. The explosion was real. The story that followed may not have been. 18. Operation Northwoods, early 1960s. Cold War tension. The U.S. wanted justification for war with Cuba. So the military drafted a plan, not for defense, but for deception. The proposal called for fake attacks on American targets, even staged plane hijackings with real-looking victims. The goal was public outrage, anger strong enough to demand war. The plan was formally approved at the highest military levels, but it was never carried out. Decades later, the files were released. The plan was real. Only the execution was stopped. No accident happened, but the intent was official. 17. The Bengal Famine, 1943, British India. Millions began to starve. Families collapsed. The official explanation was shortage, but food still existed, and exports continued. Grain left the region. Policy decided distribution. Prices exploded. Survival became unaffordable. Disease followed hunger. Over 3 million people died. Officials denied responsibility. But later studies showed there was no absolute shortage. Access was restricted by policy. The famine was real, but the cause was not a lack of food. 16. The 2008 financial crash. It was called a sudden collapse, an unpredictable failure that no one saw coming. But inside the banks, they knew. Warnings were everywhere. The collapse was predicted, and the smartest money pulled out. They cashed out early. Everyone else was left exposed. Homes disappeared. Jobs vanished. The system collapsed in public. Then the rescue began. Trillions were injected. The same institutions were saved. The rich recovered fast. Everyone else didn't. The crash was real. The timing was not. Like the video, subscribe, and comment. It helps grow the channel. 15. The Bhopal gas disaster. December 1984, India. A pesticide factory storing a highly toxic gas. Safety systems were disabled. To cut costs, executives were warned. The risks were known. Then the leak began. Toxic gas poured out. While the city slept, eyes burned, lungs failed. Doctors didn't know what they were treating. Thousands died within hours. The company denied responsibility, but the failures were documented. The damage never ended. The disaster was real. The negligence was a choice. 13. The assassination route of JFK. November 22, 1963. The president rode in an open car in a public downtown area. Agents were pulled back. The route was changed to include a slow, exposed turn. High ground surrounded the motorcade. Security checks were minimal. Crowd control was light. The vehicle reduced speed. Then the shots rang out. President Kennedy was killed. The nation froze. Later, analysts reviewed the security plan. Multiple protocols failed all at once. Each decision alone seemed minor. Together, they were fatal. 14. Fukushima nuclear meltdown. March 2011. A massive earthquake struck. Then came the tsunami. The reactors shut down automatically, but cooling still needed power. The backups failed. They were placed in low-lying areas. Engineers had warned about this. The warnings were ignored. Cooling systems shut down. Reactor buildings exploded. Radiation leaked into the environment. Entire towns were evacuated. The disaster was called unavoidable, but the failure path was known. Cheaper designs were chosen. The consequences were permanent. The meltdown was real. 12. The Tulsa Race Massacre. In 1921, Greenwood was prosperous, known as Black Wall Street. One accusation changed everything. Tension escalated fast. Authorities deputized civilians. Protection was withdrawn. Then the destruction began. Entire blocks were set on fire. Some attackers even used aircraft. Residents ran for their lives. Survivors were detained for their own safety. The event was officially called unrest, but over 35 blocks were destroyed. Insurance refused to pay. Generational wealth vanished. For decades, the story was buried. The massacre was real. The label hid the role of authority. 11. The Great Fire of London. September 1666. It started as a small fire. Then the wind took control. Wooden buildings burned fast. One solution was known: fire breaks, but they were delayed. Permission came too late. The fire raged for days. Most of the city was destroyed. Over 80% of London was gone. Then came the rebuilding. Property lines changed. Ownership shifted. The city was reorganized. Some gained. Others never returned. The fire was real. If history like this matters to you, like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps the channel grow. 10. The Hindenburg Disaster. May 1937. The pride of German engineering. Lifted by hydrogen, a gas known to ignite easily. The danger was well known. Helium was safer, but unavailable. Speed and spectacle mattered more. Thousands watched. Then, ignition. The hydrogen burned instantly. The Hindenburg was destroyed in seconds. 36 people died. The disaster was broadcast live. The cause wasn't a mystery. The fuel choice sealed the outcome. Airship travel ended overnight. The fire was real, but the risk was accepted in advance. 9. The Fall of the Library of Alexandria. Once it held the world's knowledge. Science, medicine, history, information gathered across civilizations. And then, it was gone. History calls it an accident, a fire during war. But the destruction didn't end there. The library was damaged again and again, each time under different rulers, each time for different reasons, but always with the same result. Knowledge disappeared. Works we still haven't recovered. Centuries of progress erased. This wasn't one disaster. It was repetition. The loss was real. 8. Iran Air Flight 655, July 1988. A routine civilian flight, flying its scheduled path. In a tense military zone. The plane was climbing. It was identified as hostile. 2 missiles were fired. The aircraft was destroyed. All 290 people on board were killed. There were no survivors. The incident was called a mistake, but the plane was clearly marked. And on a known route, no formal apology followed. Those involved were later honored. The victims were civilians. The loss was permanent. The shootdown was real. 7. The Armenian deportation failures. During the First World War, an entire population was ordered to move. The order was called relocation. Temporary, administrative. The explanation was logistics. Food was limited. Protection was minimal. Deaths were described as unintended, blamed on chaos, but patterns emerged. Property changed hands. The same outcomes repeated across regions. Survival rates collapsed. Reports described systematic harm. The word failure was used, but the outcome was consistent. The suffering was real.
6. Pompeii's ignored evacuation. 79 AD. The warnings came early. Earthquakes, tremors, strange clouds above the mountain. But the city stayed open. Commerce continued, and status mattered. The signs were minimized. Then the mountain erupted. The sky turned black. Evacuation came too late. There was no escape. The city died where it stood. Thousands were buried instantly. The evidence stayed. The danger was not sudden. The disaster was real, but the delay. If history like this matters to you, like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps the channel grow.
5. The Rainbow Warrior sinking. July 1985. The ship was a protest vessel, challenging nuclear tests. While docked in New Zealand, an explosion ripped through the hull. The ship began to sink. One crew member was killed. The sinking was first called an accident. No suspects, no motive. But the damage was deliberate. 2 separate bombs. The trail led overseas. They weren't criminals. They were government operatives. A foreign intelligence service was responsible. The truth surfaced slowly. The sinking was real. So was the lie. 4. COVID lab leak suppression. A global crisis began. Fear spread faster than answers. Early questions emerged. Some possibilities were shut down. Discussion was discouraged. Certainty was projected early. Behind the scenes, doubts existed. So did conflicts of interest. Questioning became controversial. Careers were at stake. Institutions closed ranks. Then, the conversation shifted. Previously dismissed questions returned. Without certainty, the science hadn't changed. The messaging had. The impact was real. But the silence wasn't about truth. It was about control. 3 Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, March 2014. A routine international flight. No distress call. Then the signal vanished. Communications went dark. Yet military radar still tracked the plane, making deliberate turns, crossing multiple airspaces without interception. The search began. Across vast distances, jurisdictions overlapped. Responsibility blurred. Only fragments remained. Some pieces washed ashore, but not the aircraft. The disappearance was real. So were the gaps. Some questions were never answered. 2. The Berlin Wall announcement mistake. November 1989, the government planned a controlled change. Travel restrictions were being adjusted. One official was tasked with announcing it. He hadn't read the briefing carefully. When does the change take effect? His answer was vague. Immediately, the message spread fast. Thousands headed for the wall. They had no orders. No clear command came, so they made a choice. The wall was breached. The world watched in real time, but the system had already accepted collapse. The announcement just accelerated it. The fall was real. Before we continue, like the video, subscribe, and comment. You're watching History Fact Story. It helps the channel grow. 1. The British opium trade in China. China traded goods the world wanted. Britain was losing money, so a solution was chosen. Opium, sold illegally. Addiction spread fast. China tried to stop it. Britain responded with force. The Opium Wars began. China was defeated. And the drug trade was legalized, protected by the state. Millions were affected. Britain profited. China collapsed economically. Later it was framed as market chaos. But it wasn't an accident. It was policy. An entire nation was addicted by design.